Hello, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Today is the second last video of Blacklist number four's JV. At least of uh, that tier of challenges that come up. Now, as has been the case with the entirety of the game, the Lexus LS300 from the very start of the game has got us through every single challenge, milestone, race, toll booth time trial, the works. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect it to get as far as it did. But we're here, let's keep going. So, at this moment in time, I'm dealing with a series of challenges that are getting to a point of incredible difficulty. Um, Part of it is because what was once the easy races, that being the circuits, the sprints, are now the hardest. And the reason behind that is because with certain tracks, it becomes less of a battle of who's better and more of a battle of attrition. For those that may need a quick definition reminder, basically it is a battle of stamina. Who can last longer? Not a battle of raw power. Now, the reason I bring it up as a battle of attrition is because the only race in this particular tier that actually scares me is, I believe, the second race of the tier. It is a circuit race. And each lap of this 4-lap race is a minimum of 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes, meaning that we're looking between 8 and 10 minutes for one race. This in and of itself is not totally outside the question or the realm of possibility, but it is, however, outside the realm of consistency. It becomes a little bit more luck based. Now, a lot of the videos on my channel, I admit, have a element of luck. Okay, that was just rude there, Nightspeed. I'm just trying to talk on the phone while I'm driving. You don't need to cut me off. As I was saying, it becomes more about luck than it does about skill. At least in the eyes of some. Unfortunately, without a level of understanding of the tracks, of the competition of one's own vehicle, the chances of success just on a whim are very low. Thus, I believe it does have an element of skill, or does have an element of luck, but it is primarily a skill-based challenge, which is what it is. Now, this here is the last of the sprint tracks. And honestly, outside of Nightspeed trying to cut me off, it's not too bad. And given we're heat level 1, I don't really see there being any major issues getting away from the police this time. Just gonna, take a quick detour, acting like a toddler and resisting arrest. And he spotted me from through a solid object and over a hill. That's impressive. Okay, we'll keep going. At this point, the police are a non-issue. And I think that's something that a lot of people can vouch for and understand if you've played the game. Need for Speed Most Wanted, for all intents and purposes, has a very... The police are very easy to get away from, but often hit hard if you're not paying attention. Thus, when I'm sitting yakking on the phone, recording my voice while playing the game, I get myself into a lot of circumstances that I shouldn't be able to get out of. Or can get out of, but never should have gotten into the first place. And this will become this is a very common theme for a lot of players, in that Need for Speed Most Wanted doesn't necessarily house the greatest challenge when it comes to getting away from the police. Rather, it's more about consistency in taking them down to begin with. Okay, I'm going to use this opportunity to get the heck out of here and... Wait, he saw me? Wait, who saw me? That's the real question. Okay. I always miss this shortcut. Or not shortcut, hiding spot. Wait, what? That garbage bin is a solid wall. Cool. So, I guess getting away from the police has become priority number 1. We're already halfway to heat level 3, so it's, kind of cutting her a little bit closer than I would like. And this is the point where building multiple cars actually ends up cheaper in some capacity, or easier than having, than going and stopping to rebuild your vehicle every third race. Yes, it's $16,000 per race. It's a lot of money up front. But it adds up as you end up getting yourself into situations that you might not be able to get out of. And I realize that I probably take the more dangerous route when it comes to actually getting my vehicles up to a higher level. What I tend to do in a casual playthrough of the game is make 16 to 20 vehicles. Every single one of them has to be upgraded up to the next level and whatnot as I use them. The result is that I end up with a plethora of vehicles that I don't really use all too often because I have others that I specialize or use more frequently. Just because I use it more frequently. There's no other reason behind it, so to speak. I end up gravitating towards my favorites. The Audi 54, or the Audis being one of them. I believe it's the S4 is one of my favorites. The others being like the BMWs, the Dodge Viper. They all kind of add up to being more commonly used vehicles simply because of both their stats, but also their stature within the franchise. I don't think it's mentioned enough that a lot of vehicles and a lot of choices that are made by the developers are based on what the perception of the vehicle choices would be. For example, Need for Speed Underground had cars like the Dodge Neon. The Neon doesn't show up at all in Most Wanted, but the Lexus shows up. We have the Cobalt SS that shows up. We have Audis that show up that had no presence in Need for Speed Underground. So I think there is a little bit of a give and take there. Their roster is picked based on what they believe will actually be enjoyed in the games. The Fiat Punto is one that I often laugh at for being kind of a little bit on the smaller side. But for people who like those cars, having it there is better than not. I believe that in some way, shape, or form, Forza Motorsport had the right idea in allowing the player to basically drive whatever the heck they want. But I think what older Need for Speed and racing games had over the newer generation is choice, but also unlocking them. Looking back at like Forza Motorsport, at really virtually any of the newer generation racing games, you end up with a situation where the vehicles you start with are kind of meh, but it takes next to no time at all to get up to a racing standard. Whereas with this, you start with option of 4 cars. And each of your tiers that you go up, each challenge you beat gets you that much closer to those god tier cars like the Corvette, like the Dodge Viper, like the Ford GT, the Plymouth Hemi Cuda in terms of Need for Speed Carbon. Each of these other vehicles you had to work for. And it makes them that much more enjoyable to have because you know you earned the car. Whereas a lot of the newer games, you win a couple races, maybe a tournament or two, and then suddenly you have a Bugatti. And that sense of scale kind of disappears. I think when it comes to video games, when it comes to animation, when it comes to superheroes, that sense of scale often gets blown so far out of proportion that it becomes hard to wrap one's head around. For example, 120 miles an hour is absurdly fast to me. If I were to actually drive my vehicle at 120 miles an hour, I would be off my speedometer on my minivan. In real life, that is. So, imagining what 120 miles an hour actually looks like, I would have absolutely no clue. And I think that's something that a lot of people actually miss when it comes to these things, is video games give you the opportunity to try something that otherwise you wouldn't have a chance to. It makes the experience more realistic, more plausible without the chance of actual bodily harm. And I like that about gaming. I like that you can sit down and play Skyrim and have a grand adventure. Learn about an entirely new world. And when you're done, you go back to your day job, knowing that at no point in time did you actually put your life in harm's way, while experiencing this adventure of a lifetime. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I like that about it. Anywho, we are going into round 3. We got a Lotus Elise, and a Corvette. I don't like my odds here. The Corvette is one of the best all-around cars in the game. The Lotus Elise, while it does lack a little bit in the top speed category, has the best handling in the game, making it one of the best cars, period, because it doesn't need to slow down when taking those turns like most other vehicles would. Did they all get in a car accident right on the corner there? They're all half a mile behind already. Oy vey. Did I just talk their vehicles up for nothing? I sincerely hope not. Come on, guys, catch up. You got this. Yeah, this one, I feel like this race is a bust. It's a crying shame, too. Of all the crews that could have actually done it, this one is one that I believe had one of the best chances of beating me. Oh well. So, I have a plan. One that I think is going to be absurd. But what I'm going to do after this challenge is complete, in my off time while waiting for videos to render or doing other things, I want to make the definitive tier list of the cars in this game. And I have a way to do it. It's actually quite simple. Every car must attempt every track a minimum of 3 times. Ideally, I'm going up to 5. The top, or the best total time across every sprint track from each of those 4 to 5 attempts will be recorded and compared against each other vehicle. That way I can get a decent aggregate or average for each vehicle in the game. Now, there are going to be flaws here. Most notably, the flaws in this system are pretty glaringly obvious. If I have a really good run with one car or have a favorite that shines through, it is going to impact the results. Other side of it is that if I have a bad race, it's going to impact the results. Thus, to reduce the problem, I'll be doing it with no traffic, nothing. It is just straight point to point, see how fast it went, and test again. The other side of the problem is going to come from practice. A car that comes later, even if it's not as strong, is going to have a worse average score than a vehicle that comes earlier if I am practiced on said courses or with said vehicle. So I am trying to work out the kinks on that a little bit, but I think that it'll be an interesting look into how the games themselves, or how each vehicle really performs across a variety of circumstances. And circumstances that crop up more often will be weighed heavier towards the total score of a vehicle. I think that makes sense. Also be able to get information like which car is best on which tracks, which, I'll be honest, I'm kind of curious about. It'd be nice to see just how differently each vehicle performs and why. I don't know. It'd be kind of a, let's call it a passion project and a long-running run, or long-running informational outlook. Anywho, it's apparent that these guys are not catching up. So, the next race will be the final race of today's video. And it is going to be the last of the lap knockouts for this tier. The reason being is because the final race that I haven't done for this tier of tracks is by far the hardest. And I want to save it for the finale of this tier, dealing with JV himself. Now we have Lee, Turbo Freak, and Vance, I guess it is? Not sure what each of them are using. One of them had a VW Golf GTI by the looks of it. And I might get a chance to see... Oh, Turbo Freak is running the Ford GT. The Ford GT... Oh, Vance has another Golf GTI. So we've got... Okay, so there are 2 GTIs and a Ford GT. I think it's fair to say that Turbo Freak with the Ford GT is the biggest threat in this race. Ford GT kind of performs on the higher end in general. I've always found that it has really good acceleration overall. Top speed is definitely decent, but handling is kind of middle of the road. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's definitely better than some of the handling out there, making it kind of a mid-high tier vehicle, at least in my opinion. Anywho. Wait, I can use the shortcut. Nice. This will definitely give me a boost or a hindrance depending on how well this works. The Ford GT came out of that beautifully, and while I used half a tank of nitrous, the GT was able to hold its own without keeping up with me. So I gotta come up with something a little bit more drastic to be able to defeat him. We're sitting at about a minute 46 on the final race of final race of today's video. I'm currently in second place. Lee, who has the green Golf GTI, is lagging about 200 feet behind. Not the end of the world. I have been able to catch up a little bit. Turbo Freak moved from about 1,000 to 500 feet ahead of me, which suggests that tight turns are not the forte of that car, or the driver. Gotta take a little bit of a grass shortcut, and hopefully catch up enough to actually deal something, or get ahead of him. About 1.7 seconds behind, which racing it's a pretty big difference. It's going around the major... Oh, he got in an accident. I'm just going to take my turn a little wide. And I ran into Turbo Freak there. He's right behind me, but I've gotten into first place ahead of him. So, oh no. He took the turn wide and ended up hitting a tree, putting Turbo Freak with the Ford GT in last place. Which means I just have to beat Lee with the Golf GTI in the final lap. Huh. Okay. I wasn't expecting to actually be able to take him out on the second lap. And by a fluke, no less. I thought that maybe taking him or trying to get him to run into a wall would be the ideal circumstance, but apparently a tree works just as well, if not better. Anywho, I don't think Lee is going to be able to hold its own against the Lexus here. So I'm going to give you a couple words of advice. Number one, if you ever have the need for speed, play a video game. Please do not take it to the streets. Number two, if you like this video and want more content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell to make sure you catch each of my videos. I upload 3 times a week with the hope of getting a little bit of something for everybody. Lastly, if there's a video or series that you want to see, be sure to leave it in the comments and I'll get to it. Eventually. I am a little bit on the slower side than I thought I would be originally, but be that as it may, I'd love to hear it. With all of that, I hope you all have a good one. No, it would be funny to see exactly how high up the tier list this car actually is.